Cops of Reddit. What is the most stupid criminal you've ever met? Old roommate was and is a cop. He came home to tell me an ATM was robbed, after hours, for $15,240. The next day, the man who robbed the ATM deposited $15,240 into his personal account at the bank he robbed the night prior. Well, hey, maybe it's just a very unusual coincidence. I'm a 911 dispatcher in Florida. Sometimes confused or drunk people knock on the wrong door or try to get into the house thinking it's theirs, but it isn't. It's an honest mistake, but the homeowner is rightfully very afraid, thinking they're about to be robbed, or worse. Well, I had this kid, must have been in his early 20s, and clearly stoned, called me going absolutely crazy that someone is trying to kill him and take his property and rape his girlfriend, blah blah blah. I send units code 3 to this guy, thinking it's a burglary in progress. Turns out the guy ordered a pizza and forgot about it, and scared the delivery guy half to death. You know, one day I really hope to live in Florida. Life just sounds so much more exciting over there. I knew a guy who got busted selling weed. He went to his hearing at the court and went through the metal detector with an Altoid tin full of ecstasy pills in his pocket. It set off the metal detector, sheriff's deputies searched him and found the pills and arrested him on the spot. So wait, if you get arrested on your way to court, are you also in trouble for missing your court hearing? Or now, maybe you just have to schedule 2 more. My mom's cousin was a bank robber. The time he got caught, he went into a bank, scoped the place out, left to go back to his bike. This dude robbed banks on a freaking bike. He put the mask on, robbed the bank, the police see the tape, see that bank robber was wearing the exact same clothes as the guy who left less than a minute before, and that was that. Yeah, there seems to be a lot of people that think that as soon as they cover their face, everyone just immediately has no idea who it is. Took a vehicle burglary report where the victim found a driver's license sitting in her driver's seat that the suspect must have left behind. Seems damning, but if he had any criminal smarts, he would just say his license was stolen, and the thief must have dropped it while breaking into the new victim's vehicle. Without any other evidence, the case would have gone nowhere. The next day, I take a report at a church that was a couple of blocks away from the vehicle burglary. This guy stole the video cameras from the building. He must have thought the footage came with the camera, because when we checked the video, there was a high-def close-up of the suspect's face as he removed the camera. Good evidence, sure, but I still didn't know who the guy was. Until I looked at the license I collected the day prior and saw it was the same exact guy. You gotta break the camera before it sees you. Every day I see a big black SUV with sheriff written on the side parked in the driveway across the street. I don't know if the guy is the sheriff or works for the sheriff, but one night I wake up to a dozen sirens outside. Turns out some idiot tried breaking into the sheriff's dude's house while he was home, and his vehicle was right freaking there. I mean, let's be honest, even just having like a fake police car sitting in your driveway all the time would probably be a pretty good security system. Although in some neighborhoods it might also get the house shot up. My dad is a cop, and I remember that he called me one night and said that he wanted to tell me how glad he was that I'm not as stupid as the guy he arrested that night. An idiot high schooler was caught stealing alcohol after his fake ID was rejected. His fake ID said he was born in 2001, 3 years younger than he actually was. The poor guy couldn't work out why his ID didn't work. My dad recommended that he pay better attention in math class. Okay, so it doesn't actually specify when this story takes place, but I could just imagine some 18-year-old trying to make a fake ID to get alcohol, but they end up putting their age as 15 instead, and wonder why that didn't work. Can't go into too much detail, but a 14-year-old kid shot a 15-year-old kid in the leg after a fight in their apartment complex. The victim is able to describe the gun the shooter used in detail. We get the shooter's name from another kid who knows him from school. My partner looks up his Instagram, and would you believe it? There he is, posing with the gun described to us exactly. Social media is a treasure trove of wannabe gangsters incriminating themselves. Yeah, cops must have a pretty easy time when going after a lot of young people, because they never know how to keep their mouths shut. They just have to have the clout for everything. I went to a job of 2 males attempting to break into a car. The job description said that they had been at it for at least an hour. So I get there and the car was theirs. They had apparently locked themselves out. The checks confirmed it did belong to one of the person's mom. On their person was stolen mail and heaps of phones and new stuff in boxes in the car, so they got arrested for theft anyway. Ended up that the driver's door that they had been trying to break into was the only locked door out of the 4, and was unlocked everywhere else the whole time they were there. What a bizarre story. This thing has more twists than an M. Night Shyamalan movie. A teen gets fired from Red Lobster, returns to rob the same restaurant that night. They refuse to give him the money from the register, so he grabs a charity coin box, and then he leaves on a bicycle. I go to find him and see coins scattered about. I follow a trail off the same, which leads me to him hiding in bushes at a church. The bicycle was leaning up against the bush he was in. Then this is like a stereotypical cartoon kind of story, where you steal a bunch of money and then just leave a trail of it leading right to you. From the local newspaper, 2 young men in a pickup truck on a back road stopped a courting Amish couple in a buggy and told the couple to give them all of their money. But spoiler, the Amish don't generally have money. They do have good memories though, and told the cops the license plate number. The inept criminals were locals too, and should have known better than to try and rob the Amish. Yeah, the Amish do seem like pretty good people to rob, because behind that very old-fashioned aesthetic, I'm sure they just have basements full of gold and bling. We had an inmate that would constantly call Crime Stoppers on his contraband cell phone, and try to get them to give him the reward if he confessed to his crimes. He did this several times a month. Do you think that people on America's Most Wanted watch the show America's Most Wanted, be like, alright, what's my bounty up to? Like, maybe I can claim the reward for myself. Not a cop myself, but about 10 years ago I got held up and robbed by a group of 3 guys with knives. All they wanted was the money in my wallet. So me being the smart guy, not wanting to mess with knives, I just obliged. At the end of the ordeal, he put the knife to my throat and said, "If you ever tell the cops my name is blank, I will slice your throat right now." So I went home, called the cops, told them where it happened, and gave them the name the guy told me. The name instantly rung a bell with them, since the guy had come into contact with the police in the past. The cops went to the spot where I was robbed, and they were laying an ambush for a new guy to appear. They could instantly identify the guy. He was arrested, and that's about it. Happened in the Netherlands. Don't know his sentence or anything. You know, maybe they're trying some kind of reverse psychology, because if somebody is that blatantly just trying to get caught, you have to wonder, like, does he have motive to want to be caught or something? Like, maybe I'm doing this guy a favor by taking the police to him. I went to a domestic violence call where the woman claimed her husband hit her. When I asked her how it happened, she told me he couldn't provide the kind of life she wanted him to give her. She stated since he had a heart attack and got lupus, he hasn't worked, so she decided she would start inviting some friends over to have sex with her for money. Mind you, she's telling me, a fully uniformed officer, all of this. She says he should act as the person who handles the money for her, i.e. her pimp. She then calls someone to come over and tells her husband that after she gets paid for the sex, he should hold the guy at knife point and take the rest of his money. She said he refused to help her with this, so they got into an argument. He pushed past her to get out of the apartment, and she claimed that was the assault she called me for. I asked her if she understood she just admitted to planning a felony crime. She looked shocked that planning a prostitution and robbery was wrong at all, and did not get why I wasn't arresting her husband for trying to remove himself from her stupid plan to get them both arrested. Okay, so I know that this channel is called Imagine If the Internet Was Real, but I refuse to believe that this one is real. Like, who calls the police because they're mad that their partner won't join them in on their crime that they were planning, and then just tell the policeman all about it? Like, as far as all the stories I've read that I don't believe, this one's pretty high up on that list. Not me, but my buddy is a cop and told me about this one kid in particular he dealt with for years. No cleverness to him. Numerous times he walked into his neighbor's garage in broad daylight and just stole his bike. Constantly stole from stores in plain view, even the occasional minor assault or burglary. He always got caught. Like had never gotten away with any of his hundreds of crimes, but because he was a minor, there were never any real repercussions. A few days before he turned 18, my friend and another officer went to his house to basically remind him that if he does anything after that, he will face real punishment as an adult, and he'll get 0 breaks. Like a last-ditch effort to be helpful. 2 days after his 18th birthday, he's caught committing an armed robbery. Pretty sure he's doing a few decades behind bars. Yeah, it's actually shocking just how much minors can get away with. But everybody has to turn 18 someday. Ex-LEO here. So I get a call a couple years ago to a lady who says that she's being threatened. I respond to a very rural area and she shows me her cell phone, and it is a chain mail text from an unknown number. The message showed a picture of a girl with a gag in her mouth, and she's looking at a camera and holding a sign with both hands that says, "Help." The text of the message stated that she was in Amsterdam and she didn't forward the text to 10 people, and look what happened to her. I explained to the lady that it was a hoax and explained what a chainmail message was. She refused to believe me and became argumentative. When I offered to contact Interpol for her, she did not know what that was. That wasn't good enough, and just kept saying the girl needed help. I asked her if she knew the girl, and she said no, and she believed that the girl tried to send her the message using any made-up numbers she could instead of contacting anybody she knew. My reasoning was once again shot down, and she said again that the girl needed her help. I remember driving away, and the lady screamed at me that I needed to help that girl. I responded with a single "no" over my PA as I quickly sped away. Both of those women were never heard from again. Now forward to 10 people. Well, at least her heart's in a good place, but I think she needs a little bit more experience with the internet to really understand how the world works. Not a cop, but worked at a 7-Eleven in a rough part of Chicago. I had 2 guys come in and ask for 2 bottles of Grey Goose. I asked for their IDs, they handed them over, and I grabbed the 2 bottles from behind the counter to ring them up. They proceeded to grab the bottles and book it out of there, leaving their IDs on the counter. I called the police, they came in asking for a description of the thieves, and I handed them the IDs. The cops were in disbelief at the stupidity, left and went to the address on one of the IDs that was about 2 blocks away. About 15 minutes later, they walked in with the 2 guys, and bottles of Grey Goose. The poor guys didn't even have a chance to open them. I confirmed it was them, didn't press charges, took the bottles of Grey Goose back, and went on with my overnight shift. So okay, if this is just one person, then I can understand that it's just all on impulse, but did these 2 people plan to say, okay, after we hand them the IDs, then we just grab it and run? I don't know, maybe with people like this, when one person does something very impulsively, the other just catches on immediately and does the same. So I'm sitting in the station, doing paperwork. I'm looking out the window, and a few yards away is a bus stop. A young lad is smashing the glass of the bus stop, as a way of showing off to a couple of girls. So I sigh, walk out 20 yards over to him, and arrest him. Another time, a lad had just broken into a pharmacy and stole some drugs. Sleeping tablets, which he started taking, maybe to hide the evidence. Who knows how these people's minds work. There's a foot chase, which gets slower and slower and slower. I ended up just walking slowly behind him. The guy fell asleep while I was booking him in. I wonder if he remembered any of this when he woke up in jail the next day. Not a cop, but I've got a pretty good story. So once, when I went to a grocery store, there were a few officers inside, getting statements from some of the staff. Apparently some guy had dropped a gallon-sized Ziploc bag full of crack on the floor while he was walking out. The staff members noticed it right away and called the police, right before the guy comes back into the store, demanding that the staff return his crack. He was still arguing with and threatening them when the police walked in the door. Well, hey, a full gallon-sized bag, that's probably pretty expensive. I'm sure he didn't want to just leave that. As a teacher, remembering asking a student who was looking a bit out of it what was up. Sleepishly, she replies, "I didn't get much sleep." I asked her if everything is fine, as you normally do. "Yeah, it's okay. My uncle got arrested last night, though. Low socio-economic area, so it's not as unusual as you think." Anyway, she tells the story. Uncle's so stupid, he and his mate thought it would be a good idea to steal a local ATM. He and his mate smashed through the windows, put chains around it, and dragged it out with their big truck. They decided it worked well, so they ended up dragging it all the way home. She gives half a smile. The thing is, the cops found them easy, just followed the marks on the road all the way to the front door. So yeah, worthy I feel. Yeah, I think that a lot of people don't realize just how hard it is to break open an ATM. Like, those things are built like bunkers. Not a cop, but I used to work at a smoke shop. 3 guys broke in through a large window, left blood everywhere just trying to get in, walked right past the high-end, fancy, expensive glass, and proceeded to grab as many cheap Chinese bongs as possible. They went back through the window, breaking 2 or 3 bongs in the process of crawling through the tiny hole they made, probably cutting themselves even more than they already have, and hightailed it across the street. They seemed to have dropped darn near everything while running because there was literally a trail of broken glass leading to the apartment across the street. The cops came, followed the glass trail leading directly to someone's door, looked over the little fence on their bottom floor balcony, and saw 3 guys all cut up smoking from a broken bong. We estimated they took 8 or 9 bongs, and they were smoking from the only survivor. They turned out to be regulars. Never seen them again after that. Okay, so I've never really had a strong stance on legalizing weed either way, but I've always kind of had the stance of like, yeah, stoners can be pretty stupid. So I get a call of a beer run, shoplifting, from a local CVS. I check the area and see 2 guys matching the description. I detain them, and sure enough, they had a couple Coronas and some off-brand whiskey. I confirm with CVS that they were the suspects. The alcohol was their property, and they are desirous of prosecution. All is good. My state requires I take them to the station to book into jail and get fingerprinted. Then they are issued a citation and released with a court date a couple months out. While driving to the station, I asked what they were doing stealing the alcohol. One guy said they are only 20, and since they weren't old enough to buy it, they just decided to steal it instead. No big deal, young people make stupid mistakes. I get to the jail, book them in, and start filling out the citation. The citation requires both birthday and age. I do the math on the birthdays, and sure enough the guy is 21, meaning he is old enough to buy alcohol. I do go back to the jail and verify his birthday. Yep, same one he had listed on his driver's license. I redo the math out loud. 21 years old. I ask, "How old are you again?" He replies, 20, sir. I said, "You turned 21 last month." Again he is adamant, "No, I turned 20. I just left it at that. You know, most villains have a very dark and intricate backstory. This guy became a villain because he forgot how old he was. My dad is a cop, and he was interrogating a robber, which was denying he had any involvement since the start. My dad says, "The man told us that you robbed him of $500. He says, "No, it was only $300. He basically gave himself away. You know, not everybody was meant to be a criminal, and for the people who are most likely to do it, they seem to be the ones dumb enough to not know how to do it. But that's all for our stupid people stories of the week, so I'll see you Friday.